Welcome back. Let's continue our application. First of all, let's fire it up. Okay. And let's hit refresh here. Okay, so everything the same. So we have an exception. It says no such file or directory. Yeah, this may be that because this is downloads. So I'm restarting the project. Let's start it again. Okay, so the error is gone now. So it basically goes through the file and actually doesn't do anything with it. So let's do something with it. So for each line, we're gonna instantiate a Corona object, new Corona, and then so here we're using the no-args constructor. However, we could also use the all-args constructor, or we could use the builder as well. So we could actually chain all the setters one after the other, but for now we're going to use the setters. So first of all, Corona dot set confirmed. We're going to need that, and this is the this is going to be line 8th. So this is actually going to be the 8th tag. Okay, and as you can see, by default this is a string because we have a string array. So we need to cast this to long dot value of. Okay, so we're gonna cast this to long and then set this as the confirmed. We're also gonna set the recovered, and this is gonna be long as well. And recovered is the 10ths, therefore this is number 9. Also need the active long dot value of, and this is line 10. Let's set the combine key as well, and we're going to use this as the location name. This is line 11. Actually the 12th, but line 11 because we're counting from 0. And last but not least, we're gonna store the last update field as well, and we're gonna as we can see from this Corona class, this is actually a local date time, so we're gonna store it that way. So corona.set last update, and for this actually we're gonna need a datetime formatter. Datetime formatter. Datetime formatter of pattern, because we have the data like this. So pretty much this is the year dash month dash day, and then space, hour, minute, and then seconds. Okay, so let's use this. So local date time dot parse, and we're gonna use line 4. So the actually not line 4, but the fourth object in the line, because as you know, so we're actually separating all the tokens inside of this line into a string array, and each token is actually accessed by this line, and then in bracket the number. So line bracket 4 is actually the 5th token, and then last but not least we're gonna give it this formatter. Okay, so with this for each line we're gonna populate a Corona object. For now we're not gonna save anything, we're just gonna print it out. So we could actually use the logger. So Lombok has this pretty good annotation called log4j, with which we can pretty much log this, start logging. Oh yes, so not log4j but slf4j. Yes, so we need this, and then we can just write log.info, and as you know, we previously annotated this Corona pojo, which stands for plain old Java object, with @toString. So this is Lombok's toString generator. So you can use this. So we're gonna print this Corona object to the terminal. So let's hit refresh. Okay, and then let's hit refresh here too. And as you can see, it went through all the lines and actually populated a object for each line. Okay, so now we have this. We can actually start setting our persistence layer up. So we're gonna be using MySQL, and we're also gonna be using JPA. And you know, with JPA we also have Hibernate as well. So let's go to our POM, and we're gonna need the JPA starter, and we're also gonna need the MySQL connector. Okay, so once we have this, we need to go to our properties.yaml file, and then you're gonna populate it like this. So pretty much we're telling Spring to use this data source. The URL is jdbc colon MySQL, and then this is localhost with MySQL support. Corona is the database name, and I'm using this as well. Username is root and password is arbitrary. So this can be different for you. Inside JPA we say DTL auto should be updated. So whenever there's a change in the schema, so inside our Corona pojo, which is gonna be actually an entity from now on, then Hibernate should update it and synchronize it. So this entity should match the one in MySQL. Okay, so once we have this, what we're gonna do is we're gonna annotate this with @entity. Oh yes, I forgot to import the changes. Yes, so we're gonna import the entity class. It actually oh yes, so we're gonna need a primary key as well. Not a problem. So we're gonna write long ID, and this is actually an ID, and this is a column. Yes, so we can actually write the column name explicitly. So we can either use this or implicitly leave it to Hibernate and JPA to create names. And then updatable is gonna be false and unique true. And last but not least, we also need a generated value. Oops. And the strategy is generation type total identity. Okay, so this is we don't need to worry about this anymore. So this field is gonna be updated automatically. Okay, so next you're also gonna need a repository. And it's very important that it needs to end with the name repository. Okay, and this is not a class but an interface. We need to annotate it with @repository, and it needs to extend JPA repository Okay. So with this, we could actually inject this repository here, and later on we're going to use a service for that, but for now we're gonna just auto-wire it here. So let's do it. So we're gonna write corona repository, and we're gonna annotate it with that auto-wired. Okay. Yes, so field injection is not recommended. Yes, this is true because it's actually harder to test the classes properly if you do field injection. Therefore, constructor injection is the preferred way, but for now this is gonna be fine. Okay, so once we have this, we can use this corona repository to actually save these objects. So I'm gonna use the save method and give our corona object to it. Okay, so for each line we're gonna create a corona object, populate it, and then save it into a database. However, there's one last thing we need to do first. So here's my terminal, and I actually need to create a database. So we need to create this corona database first. So -u root and -p, and here comes my password. Okay, and then we need to create a database called corona. Okay, so this is the only thing that was needed. We can exit and then restart the application. Okay, so there's some problem here. Oh yes, so the problems that we forgot to annotate our application here with at enable JPA repositories, and because of this, Spring's gonna look for all the repositories and it's gonna configure them automatically. So let's reload the application again. So we still have some problem. So fail to determine a suitable driver class. Why we actually do this? That's interesting. Okay, so now we could perhaps do something like this. So invalidate caches and restart, because this might be an IntelliJ bug. So let's do this. No, it wasn't IntelliJ. So let's re-import the Maven dependencies. And try again. Oh, yes. So the problem is that, as you remember, we had an application.properties file. However, we deleted it and replaced it with this YAML file that we named properties.yaml, and this actually needs to be application.yaml. So if we create a application.yaml file and paste everything here and delete this one and fire up the application, then they should be fine. They should, yes, it starts without any problem. Okay, so let's go here and hit refresh. And as you can see, it goes through all the lines one by one. However, the ID is null. Welcome back. So the problem was that if you actually take a look here, so what we're actually doing here, so we create this Corona object, we populate it. However, as you can see, there's no ID, there's no setter for the ID because the ID is set automatically, and we're logging here, so obviously this is gonna be null. However, if we put it here, so we're actually saving it, so we're saving it, therefore the ID population and the generation of the population happens as well, then this is gonna be fine. This is gonna work now. So all the time there was no problem with the application. We just had the logger in the wrong location. So as you can see, the ID is increasing, and all the lines are processed and stored in the database. Okay, so once we have this, we could then okay, so what we could do now is actually use a web address instead of this file that is available locally. So what we need, so to get this, what we need to do is the following. So we're gonna need a URL, new URL, and then we're gonna use the GitHub repository that we saw previously. And we're gonna use today's date, so 6th of June. 6th of June. Yes. And actually this can throw an exception. And then we're gonna need a HTTP URL connection. And we're gonna open this connection first, and we're gonna cast this to HTTP URL connection. Let's throw instead a IO exception here. So we're also gonna need a response code, and we're gonna check what the response code is. Get response code. And if we have a 200, which is the OK, then we're gonna log to the terminal that successfully connected to GitHub. And we're gonna copy this part, this whole thing, over here. And instead of this CSV reader, we're gonna use, we're gonna use a CSV reader, but first we're gonna need a buffered reader. New buffered reader, and this needs a new input stream reader, and we're gonna give our HTTP URL connection input stream. And and here comes the reader. So this is gonna be the CSV reader, and we're giving it this input variable. Okay, so with this small change, we can actually, semicolon is needed here. So with this small change, we can actually pull our data from GitHub directly. And later on we can automate this with a scheduled process as well. So let's try it out. Oops. Yeah, so semicolon was missing here too. Okay, so let's start it up. Let's check it. So there was a problem because this if part wasn't triggered. So this must have been a different response code. So if we log the response code, then we can know exactly what was given. Spring. What's my of? Oops. But I think we're gonna need to use the fifth, I guess. So as you can see, it's 404. So there's no resource like this. So if we modify it to the fifth and reload it, then as you can see, it's working and it's populating the database. Alright, so thank you and see you in the next one.